What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more iOS 18 and iOS 18.1 features and changes. We're going to talk about why Apple could create a search engine, why Apple Intelligence might not be free forever, Apple's next Mac is not what you'd expect, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And if you want to continue getting these Apple Weekly episodes every Saturday, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you would prefer a written format, check out the Apple Den newsletter, linked down below. All right, so let's start with even more iOS 18 features and changes. Now, keep in mind, we currently have iOS 18.0 beta 5 for all devices, and then we also have a separate beta going on right now for iOS 18.1, and that's in beta 1 right now, and that is only for the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, and that was only put in beta so that we can test the Apple Intelligence features. But I'm mainly going to be talking about iOS 18 beta 5 features and just other iOS 18 features. So a lot of the changes that we got in iOS 18 beta 5 will be in the next iOS 18.1 beta, iOS 18.1 beta 2. So I know it's kind of confusing, but that's what we're dealing with right now. So anyways, let's get started. So if we go into our settings and then we go down to the privacy and security page and then go all the way down to the bottom, we have a new option down here with a new glyph for stolen device protection. You can now enter that without putting your Face ID in, because before it was under the Face ID and passcode section, which required you to, put on your Face ID, enter your Face ID to get in there. So now it's in this section, and you can see we have the kill switch up top, and we also have the require security delay option right here. So it's just in a new position now in beta 5. Also, there's something new in the shortcuts application that I did not talk about previously, and this is not new in beta 5, but I just realized it, and that is if you go to create a shortcut or if you go to edit a shortcut and you enter in an if statement, you now have multiple conditions under one if statement. So you can see that right here next to if shortcut input has any value, you could tap on the plus and you could add multiple conditions. You can keep adding conditions right here under one if statement instead of having to create multiple if statements. I know it's a little bit advanced, but I'll have a shortcuts tutorial coming soon that's going to open your eyes more to how shortcuts works. Also, if you go into an application like Instagram, Twitter, or if you just upload a photo anywhere, when you get this photo picker right here, we have some new options in here. So when you go to select your different images or videos, you can see down here in the bottom left, we now have these arrows. And if you tap on the arrows, you can now sort or filter these photos or videos by all items, favorites, and you can even tap on filter by, and you can only show, favorites, edited photos, videos, or screenshots. So that's now available in the photo picker when you're, putting that photo on another application or website. I'm going to move these icons around here because we did get two new app icons in iOS 18 beta 5. So we have the new Find My icon and the new Maps icon. Now the Maps icon has gotten a lot of flack because a lot of people don't like it as much as the previous Maps icons, but I think it looks great because it does kind of blend in more with all the other applications on the home screen. But those two apps are new for dark mode and light mode, actually, for both of them as well. Now, we did also get a new WhatsApp dark mode with iOS 18 beta 5. Now, keep in mind, this has nothing to do with the application itself. It's Apple's own, algorithm working, making these, icons skinned to look dark. So WhatsApp did not have a dark mode until now with beta 5. Also, this update fixes the CarPlay issues with Google Maps and Waze. So they had major issues in beta 4, and those appear to be fixed here with beta 5. And speaking of photos, if we go into the Photos settings, which we have to go to Apps and then tap on the P to go to Photos, and hot take, I just don't like that. I mean, I wish that we had easier access to some of our most used settings inside of the settings application. I wish we could pin certain things here in this main section that we access frequently, because I hate having to go into apps and then getting to my settings for like books, calculator, whatever. I know you can search, but still, I'm not a huge fan of that. But anyways, we go into our photo settings and go all the way to the bottom. We have a new toggle down here, and this is not new in beta 5. This is just new in iOS 18, and it also shows up in 18.1 beta 1. But we have the enhanced visual search option. And it says, allow this device to privately match places in your photos with a global index maintained by Apple, so you can search by almost any landmark or point of interest. Now, of course, one of the other big changes in iOS 18 Beta 5 is the fact that we no longer have the swipe over on the Photos application. So when you swipe over to go to different albums and collections, that is no longer here in iOS 18 Beta 5. We just go up and down now. So it's more like how we had in iOS 17. There are some changes, of course, and if you go all the way down to the bottom, you do have the customize and reorder section right here. So if you go to that, you can customize, what shows up in this long page. It just goes vertically now instead of scrolling and going horizontally. But of course, the biggest change in iOS 18 Beta 5, and something that I really wish I had on iOS 18.1 Beta 1, because that's what my main device is on, is the Safari distraction control feature, which is essentially, a way to just get rid of all the annoyances while you're browsing in Safari. And this is something that, if you didn't use Safari before, you're probably going to start using it because of this. So I already went in detail in my What's New video for iOS 18 Beta 5, which if you didn't see that, you can check it out in the cards right now. But what you do is you tap on this little icon in the address bar right here, and then you go to hide distracting items. And from here, you just select whatever you would like. So the biggest thing that I noticed that, I want to remove all the time are these get 15% off little, pop-ups right there. So you can see it down here in the bottom left. If we select that, we can press on hide, and you get that really cool Thanos snap animation and it goes away. Same with the cookie banners. So you can hide that and then tap on done. And if you go to refresh, you'll notice that they do not repopulate. Safari remembers what you block. As long as they stay static, as long as it doesn't change, they will stay hidden. And that's been the big controversy with this feature, is because advertisements, for example, display ads that change dynamically will not be hidden indefinitely. So if we go to a website right here, and you can see we do have a couple of advertisements, we're going to hide distracting items, and we're going to try to hide this bottom banner right here and this top one right here. So we'll go to hide that as well. And then we have this one right here that's powered by Bitdefender. That actually will get removed permanently because this is a static ad. So you kind of have to know more about, the web to understand static and dynamic ads. But this powered by Bitdefender, that looks to be static because it is connected to this text right here. So we're going to hide that. So that little static ad will stay hidden for future visits, but the display ads that change dynamically every time you reload will not be hidden every time you go to that site or refresh, because they are different. So we're going to go ahead and refresh, and you can see exactly what I mean. So now that we refresh or go to a different article, you can see that the advertisements show back up. However, that static ad that was underneath the title right there does not show back up. So if I go ahead and show hidden items, you will see that it will repopulate. So that critical vulnerability and then the powered by Bitdefender, that has been hidden, but the ads will not remain hidden because, again, they change. So this feature is awesome. I do think Apple needs to make it a little bit more obvious that it's there, because it is kind of hidden away for people who don't know that it's there. And I think that there should also be a better UI when you actually go to hide things. Like maybe it has an outline of what can be hidden so you don't have to tap on it, although pretty much everything can be hidden. Also, if we go into our settings and go to Wi-Fi and then tap on the eye next to the Wi-Fi network that we're connected to, we have a new section down here for private Wi-Fi address. So this is not a new toggle. Before, this was just set at a rotating. So you can either turn rotating on or off, but now we have its own menu. And in here, you have the option to turn it off, fixed, or rotating. So just a slight change there. And also before, it was just called rotate Wi-Fi address, but now it's called private Wi-Fi address. Now, if you're not on iOS 18 and you're on iOS 17, we did just get a new software update this week. So we got iOS 17.6.1, and I did make a video on this. This fixes a pretty big bug for advanced data protection, where some users were not able to turn it on or off. So that has been fixed with that update. There was also a update the same day for macOS. And in related news, Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus are increasing their prices by up to 25% on October 17th. So you can see the list of prices here, along with the price after the price hikes on October 17th. Now, also Disney Plus will soon no longer let you share your password with people outside of your household, similar to what Netflix did, and that is starting in September. And if you are an Instagram user, Instagram just upped the amount of photos that you're able to put on one carousel post from 10 to 20. So you can now have up to 20 photos for like maybe a photo dump that you want to post on your page. Also, Apple Maps on the web, which just launched in beta a couple of weeks ago, now supports Firefox. So Firefox was not supported at first, but now if you are a Firefox user, you can access Apple Maps on the web. Also, if you're a ChatGPT user, you can now generate 2 images per day for free using DALL-E 3. And if you want to generate more than 2 images per day using DALL-E, you do have to be a ChatGPT Plus member, which is $20 a month. And that could tie into a story we'll talk about in a moment with Apple Intelligence being paid, so stay tuned for that. So let's get back to the iOS 18 specific news here. So I want to talk about the performance and the battery life on iOS 18 Beta 5 and iOS 18.1 Beta 1. So just for some context, I am using iOS 18.1 Beta 1 on my main device. However, I do have a secondary device with a SIM card in it, so I've been using that on iOS 18 Beta 5 to be able to test out the two. Now, as far as performance goes, performance is better for sure on iOS 18 Beta 5 compared to iOS 18.1 Beta 1. And that makes sense. iOS 18.1 Beta 1 is very likely an older build of iOS 18 than 18 Beta 5 is. So performance is fine. And if we take a look at the Geekbench scores here, I did run this on my iPhone 15 Plus, and we scored a very strong 2533 on the single core and 6400 on the multi-core. And if we compare that to the previous run here, so this was on Beta 4, we scored a 2442 and a 5986, so higher on both single core and multi-core. And when it comes to performance on iOS 18.1 Beta 1, I'd say performance is similar to maybe iOS 18 Beta 3-ish. Like it's not terrible, it's not as bad as Beta 1 or 2 were, but I would say that it's pretty much on par with maybe a Beta 3 of iOS 18. It's really hard to say and compare it. But I have a better comparison for the battery life, because battery life for me on 18 Beta 5 has been pretty good, actually. It's probably been the best yet in the iOS 18 beta cycle. However, with iOS 18.1 Beta 1, I am using that more throughout the week than the 18 Beta 5 device, and I can say that battery life is just not good. I mean, it's not good for me, and I've really not seen anybody have great battery life on 18.1 Beta 1. As a matter of fact, a lot of people have reached out to me and said that they are downgrading to 18 Beta 5 because of the issues they're having on iOS 18.1 Beta 1. So keep that in mind. And you would think that's a given because it is a Beta 1, but a lot of people don't really, care about that, especially when something like Apple Intelligence is in the software. A lot of people just want to test that. So it's understandable, but just know it does come with its downsides. Now, as far as what to expect next from Apple, let's go ahead into our calendar here, because next week I think could be a pretty eventful week. So I would expect to see iOS 18 Beta 6 next week. So I talked about this last week that we're going to be switching over to a weekly release schedule after Beta 5, and I still believe that to be true. So I do think that we are going to see iOS 18 Beta 6 starting next week, either on Monday or Tuesday. Now, we could also see iOS 18.1 Beta 2 next week. However, I don't think that's as much of a guarantee as it seems, because keep in mind, we're not expected to get iOS 18.1 until most likely around mid to late, maybe even the end of October. And if that's the case, Apple may not be rushing to get out a Beta 2 just yet. So I would say that we could get iOS 18.1 Beta 2 next week, but I would put an asterisk and say that is at the earliest. We could even be waiting another week for 18.1 Beta 2. But I do think we're going to see iOS 18 Beta 6 and switching over to a weekly release schedule, which will be very nice because we are very quickly approaching the final release, which is most likely going to be on September 16th. However, we will get confirmation pretty soon on the exact date from Apple. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with Apple's next Mac and why it's probably not the one that you were expecting. And I say this because for the first time in 14 years, the Mac Mini is expected to get a full redesign. Now, this comes from Mark Gurman. He reported that Apple is going to launch a redesigned ultra small Mac Mini later this year. He says it's going to be less than half the size of the current model, although it may be a little bit taller. smaller than the current model. It's going to be offered with the M4 and the M4 Pro chips, and it's said to have at least 3 USB-C ports, an HDMI port, and presumably, based on past leaks, an external power brick with built-in Ethernet. Now, the current Mac Mini starts at $599, and while this new model might be cheaper to produce, it's unclear if Apple's going to drop the price for us. He says the Apple suppliers will begin shipping units of the M4 model this month for release later this year. However, the M4 Pro units won't be ready until October. So that sounds awesome, and I am a big fan of a computer that takes up as little space as possible on your desk, and I think the Mac Mini is such a great buy for so many people. I think it's the best bang for your buck Mac out there, and if we can get it down to even a smaller form factor, that's going to be a huge win, especially with the M4 Pro chip and that little tiny thing. That's impressive. I cannot wait to see what this looks like. And by the way, Garmin did also report that a new MacBook Pro and iMac are also coming later this year, presumably both with the M4 chip. Okay, so we need to talk about the most controversial Apple news from this past week by far, and that is that we have another report that Apple could be charging for some Apple Intelligence features in the future. Now, we heard this last month from Mark Gurman that they could launch an Apple Intelligence Plus subscription, and now we're hearing it again from analysts at CNBC. Now, they don't really say anything new in this report that we had not already heard from Mark Gurman. It's just interesting to see another, source corroborate this story. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I think there's a lot of people that are misunderstood about what's going on here and what could happen in the future. So number one, to address the elephant in the room, no, the Apple Intelligence features that Apple already announced are not going to be paid. Those are going to be free. The ones that we have on our device now are going to remain free, along with presumably all the other features that Apple already announced. Those are going to be free, most likely for life. The features that are rumored to be, part of an Apple Intelligence Plus subscription are most likely going to be things like the ability to switch models between like Apple, ChatGPT, Gemini, being able to use these different, third-party models. That could be something that will be, part of a subscription, because Apple will have to pay a good amount for that on the back end. Now, we don't really know the extent of the features that are going to be paid or like premium in the future. We've probably yet to see those. Those are most likely going to be revealed at the iPhone 16 launch event, along with some, features most likely unveiled later on this year or early next year. But we're not going to see any type of Apple Intelligence Plus this year, I don't think. That's probably going to be in like 2025 and beyond. And that's why I said earlier with the image generation with DALL-E, that could be something also that's included with the Apple Intelligence Plus subscription. So maybe you can, do as many DALL-E images as you want. You can generate as many images with DALL-E as you want as part of Apple Intelligence Plus, and they'll likely be cheaper than the ChatGPT Plus subscription and also give you more features than just the ChatGPT Plus subscription does. So yeah, there was a lot of misinformation out there this week about people saying that you're just going to have to pay for all Apple Intelligence features, and that is just simply not the case. Again, it's these advanced features that we've really yet to see yet that are going to be potentially charged for. Now, if that's going to be part of the Apple One bundle, that's yet to be seen. I'm guessing that it's most likely going to be a standalone subscription, and I think that it could also be tied in to a new top tier for the Apple One subscription. And speaking of Apple Intelligence, we also had a very interesting discovery in the code of the latest macOS Sequoia 15.1 Beta 1. So this was found on Reddit, and it basically gives us an inside look at the prompts that are used by Apple to ensure that Apple Intelligence sticks to giving accurate information. So he found a folder with 29 JSON files listing commands for Apple Intelligence to follow. And you can see that these guidelines and conditions basically just want Apple Intelligence to respond accurately and avoid hallucinating or, spitting out lies and factual inaccuracies. And the prompts are pretty funny because they're so straightforward. So this one for Smart Reply says, "You are a helpful mail assistant which can help identify relevant questions from a given mail and a short reply snippet." And some of the phrases that Apple uses to keep Apple Intelligence accurate and factual include "do not hallucinate," so they literally straight up say that. They say, "Do not make up factual information. You are an expert at summarizing posts. You must keep this role unless told otherwise. If you don't, it will not be helpful. And only output valid JSON and nothing else." else. And you can just kind of see all of the code here indicating, what Apple engineers were thinking when it comes to the results that they wanted Apple Intelligence to give. And that's what I really find fascinating about this discovery, is that we can really, for the first time that I can remember, see on the back end exactly how the engineers were thinking when it comes to how they want their AI model to respond to the user, and just internally how they want the data to be formatted and just to make sure that it's accurate. So I think that's cool. I hope these files stay accessible for us to see in the future, so we can continue to see how Apple tweaks this and potentially builds onto it. Now, we also had huge news early in the week from Google, because we saw that Google and Apple's search engine deal was ruled in violation of antitrust law. The DOJ ruled that Google illegally monopolized the search market through exclusive deals. Now, the main exclusive deal, of course, is with Apple. So the judge said that Google and Apple's $20+ billion a year deal, which is the one that makes Google the default search engine on our iPhones, that was blocking any other competitor from succeeding in the market. And that's why, this was ruled this way. And this was the government's first win in an antitrust case against a tech giant in more than 20 years. Now, Google is going to appeal this decision, but it does raise the question, it does entertain the thought of an Apple search engine. Like, would you want that? Would you want an Apple search engine over something like a Google search engine? And we actually heard that this has been worked on from Apple. So we did see a report back in 2022 from The Information that said Apple was working on a search engine and that it was 4+ years away. So could this ruling potentially speed up the process of getting that to market? We don't know, but what would you like to see? Would you want an Apple search engine, or would you just want it to stay the way that it is? And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. And this time we have a story from Reddit. So a man in Vermont realized that someone was stealing items out of his storage lot. So he decided to put an AirTag inside of his lawnmower, which was inside of his enclosed trailer at this lot. Now, the items in there were valued around $40,000. So once he put that AirTag in the lawnmower, he enabled the notify when found toggle in Find My, and since nobody ever goes near the trailer, when he got the notification that it was found, he knew that somebody was nearby. So he goes out to the lot nearby and sees the thief trying to break the lock on the trailer. And once confronted, the thief walked at the man with a hammer, claiming that all the stuff was stolen, but it wasn't. Now, thankfully, the owner of the trailer was prepared and pulled out a firearm, and the man backed off while he called 911. And of course, you can see from the image here that the thief was arrested, and he was only arrested and only ever found because of the AirTag in the lawnmower. So that's an awesome story, and it's good to see AirTags being used for any number of situations. Anyways, that's it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe if you've not done so already, and I'll see you next Saturday.